Start the recording. Welcome everyone to this evening's webinar. We appreciate those who were early or on time and those who are rolling in as we speak here. We've been working through getting everybody in the door here. Tonight's webinar is going to focus on the expectations around a Pro 1, kind of leading up to and during and then afterward, as well as some frequently asked questions that we often get. We figured that we could produce this webinar ahead of the registration opening on July 1st to allow for a little bit more engagement with you all. Now, we've chosen the webinar format here so that we can take this recording and share it back to you, but also put it as a resource. I'm joined by my panelists tonight, Anne St. Clair. Thank you for joining.
Hello, welcome everyone.
We will be kind of going through the intros and norms here. As I mentioned, this is being recorded. So by staying on, you consent to having your name or likeness if it's shared up there in cyberspace. And we just want to make sure that you'll also know that right now, everybody as an attendee, your cameras aren't on or anything like that. Your names just may appear. But we just want to put that up front. In these virtual spaces, it can often be interesting to try and engage. And we've tested a lot of different formats. The webinars allow for a Q&A section. So for those of you on the bottom of your screen, depending on the device you're using, it may be at the top or a hidden bar, you can hit the Q&A feature and it will allow you to answer or to ask a question, and then we'll be able to answer those. But since we have the chat disabled, we've already had a few people just put in their name and where they're coming from. So that can be viewed by everyone, and will allow everybody to view those. So you can see Scott's coming in from Missoula. We got Corbin from Bend and Carlton from Colorado Springs. So we've got some good geographic representation. I'm tuning in from Salt Lake City, and Anne's up there in the Great White North of Girdwood, Alaska, which is a beautiful place to be this time of year. So with that in mind, you can use that Q&A to also add a question that you have as they come up. We do want to make this as reasonably interactive as we can, given the time and space that we have. We want to be able to answer the questions that you truly have, but also have a conduit after this. So if something comes up and you're like, I don't want to ask that now, we'll present some information on how you can chat with us later. So with that out of the way, thank you, Evan from Seattle, Jen from the Eastern Sierra, Spencer from Gardnerville, Nevada, and Wayland down from Monroe, Washington. So we've got everybody in there. That's great. We're seeing good geographic representation. We've got about 16 attendees now, and Ann and I as the panelists. So this is a great group. And if it gets bigger or smaller, hey, that's totally fine. This is a time of night when you might be already tuned into some other things. So we appreciate those that can make it. Nina from Seattle, thanks for tuning in. This is going to be like a game show, and we're going to be your hosts, and everybody wins. So spoiler alert. Great. Well, let me close that out for now, and I'm going to open up this. With our time tonight, we will have an agenda. The webinar is being recorded, so you'll be able to catch up later. But for now, we are also going to have some intros and norms here from Ann and I with a little bit of our background. And we want to know kind of who's in the room. So I'm going to launch a poll here shortly to ask some questions. After that, we're going to kind of get into, things like who is AIARE and the A3 and how are they different? What is our program philosophy? Maybe there'll be a little bit of story time from Ann and I. And we'll kind of be able to answer questions throughout as they come up. We'll have some engagement throughout. We'll talk about, what to expect on a Pro 1, both from like where the courses will be and their different modalities, what the application portfolio process looks like, and how that gets reviewed on our end, and then a Q&A session that's like formal at the end. That being said, we're happy to, within reason, answer any questions that crop up into that Q&A as we go through the session. And again, that Q&A right now is being used as the conduit for your name and where you're from so that we know who's in the room. But to further that, let's learn a little bit about your panelists for the evening. And Anne, if I can put you on the spot to lead us off.
Yeah, sure. Hi, thanks everyone for taking this time in summer to be thinking about next winter. It's already a really great sign for you in your professional development. So pats on the back, some kudos. Um, as I mentioned, I'm calling in from Alaska, where it's barely getting dark at night, which is pretty cool. I've been working up here for the past couple years, and essentially, I've really spanned many mountain ranges in my work. I started my career in Colorado, and I did mainly a bunch of avalanche education and some mechanized guiding. I then did a 7 year stint in British Columbia where I did a master's degree with the avalanche research program there at Simon Fraser University. I also did some avalanche forecasting for Avalanche Canada. And from there, I migrated here to Alaska, where I've been working for a university program with a snow science focus, and that is at Alaska Pacific University. And throughout all of this, the theme that's consistent in my migration is that I've always been heavily involved in working and teaching with the AIARE programs as well. So that's a little bit of my career trajectory where I am and how AIARE's been a part of it all along. I have been educated in the US pro programs. I also have familiarity and experience with the Canadian pro programs as well and recerted through all of that. So I've done a lot of pro training and certification myself, and I'm very familiar with the nerves because I repeatedly re-enter into those classrooms. So happy to talk about managing those nerves too, if that's top of mind for anyone.
Thanks for that addition, Ann. And
Mhm.
thank you for introducing yourself to the group. My name is Sean Zimmerman Wall, and I'm coming from Salt Lake City, where I've lived and really started my professional career in the Little Cottonwood Canyon area, primarily at the Snowbird ski area. I've been a ski patroller there since 2009. That's been my grounding force in the avalanche industry. But since then, I've moved into guiding, working both mechanized and human powered, both here in the United States and down in South America. And I've worked with different guiding groups to train them, as well as SAR groups, even as far as out in Austria and other parts of Europe. So I've tried to get a pretty good view of the different things that happen in the avalanche world. But most important to me is avalanche education, and the educational component of teaching on the job, but then these courses like the Pro One. The Pro One again is like that early career step that a lot of folks are going to take as they're like literally coming in the door to the profession, or that have worked a little while and kind of want to upgrade their skills, and even a small sampling of folks that already kind of know what they want to do. But I've gotten to see so many of those people as the program manager of this for the last 7 years that like this kind of stuff is really what inspires me. So it makes me feel really honored to be able to work alongside people like Ann on the instructor staff where we teach courses together, and then on the administrative staff where I get to like vicariously live through everybody's story because I get to read all their apps, I get to teach some of them, and I get to see where they go afterward. And that's really what keeps me um, engaged and like moving forward in this role. So for tonight's session, we have a set of goals that we want to meet, and really that is just to provide you all with information about what to expect on the course, answer questions about prerequisites, or uh, help you gain insight into how we prepare an application portfolio so you can be ready to hit that ground running. And right now, I'm going to launch a poll to figure out a little bit more about who's in the room, where people are coming from. So you should see that pop up on your screen. Um, it's a list of like 5 questions, and hopefully you'll be able to do that. Um, I would love it if you could answer those 5 questions. We do have a chat question coming in that we'll answer in just a moment, and we'll get to that. So thank you very much, Jen. As you go through here, you should be able to answer these 5 questions, and I'll give you a moment and I'll quiet down. And we've got some answers coming in. That's great. All right, seeing a lot of our respondents coming in here, and you're probably looking at those live results as I am.
Yeah.
And I believe I'm able to share those out once everybody's answered, but we've got a pretty good mix of ski and snowboarders. No surprise there, but we do have a snow machine user. That's great to see. No snowshoers in attendance tonight. Um, we have a majority that are not working in the avalanche industry, but a few that are. Those that are currently out there, maybe working in ski patrol, avalanche education, all forms of guiding, and even some research and land management, which is great. Or those might be sectors that folks want to move towards. So I think that's excellent to see. The the work that's currently performing or interested in requiring a certificate, nearly everybody answers yes, with a few maybe not sure because or they're not working yet, and it's not applicable. And many folks have received some sort of mentorship in their workplace or the backcountry environment, and that's really great. So I'm going to let anybody who might be taking their time to finish that do it, or maybe those polls don't always show up the same way depending on what device you use, so I'm going to let them run for another 15 seconds, but then I might be able to share those out. This is great because this is exactly what we want to see coming into these pro programs is like this diverse mix of folks, because we do believe that this course can provide something for everybody in a different way, kind of regardless where they might be in that early career phase. Um, and that's where we're here to set you up for success, both pre-course and during the course, and then optimally be a resource to you afterward. So I haven't seen any other answers come in, so I'm going to end the poll. I'm going to share the results, and those should come out across the screen. Hopefully, folks can see those as well. So this is awesome. Thank you for participating.
I'm not seeing them on your screen, Sean, so I don't know if they're.
Yeah, they might just be shared out to everybody.
Oh,
Um, and we can put those kind of in the recording as well. But that's awesome to have such a diverse group here and folks who are either already going in the industry or rearing to go. So that's cool. And we had a question from Jen, which I think is going to come up maybe from a few other folks too, which is like, hey, do we ever stop thinking about winter? We try to. It's a little hard. But in all seriousness, she asks, are there any recommendations on how to engage with like snow science, but needing to keep consistent year-round work? Um, Sharing that, they paint houses and parent, also a parent, that write construction plan or conservation plans and um, works in a diverse realm. How do you best engage this education, including outside of like the AIARE framework, to gain more knowledge and support experiences and gain traction as a professional? Um, Indicating that she's very interested in forecasting. So I think that's something that is a long answer, but the short answer is that there's a few ways you can engage people like Ann and I on a webinar like this. AIARE is a reference point for that, but there are also a lot of great other resources that are kind of asynchronous. And maybe Ann, do you have anything to add to that? And maybe we'll come back to this later as well.
yeah. The first thing I wanted to say is it's hard. It's a real challenge. It's a seasonal gig that we do, but it's almost all encompassing because there's so much involved. And so for me, what I found is kind of being ritualistic every year, including times to check out, because there are times in the winter that are so full on. We do need time to step away. So, um, yeah, there will be some weeks or months of that coming up where I do store my winter gear for off season. But yeah, when I bring it back out, I strategically pack things. I like to go to a lot of the workshops in the fall that our industry organizes to get me familiar with new research that's coming out or new changes that are happening. I think staff trainings for any operation you might volunteer with or mentor with are a really good opportunity. Reach out to be involved in those training days. And my own shuffle, preparing my own systems. I have to re-prepare them every year. It doesn't matter how long I've been doing this. Everyone can forget their ski boots. And so, yeah, I'm just have my rituals down now just so that yeah, I reset every time. But it is an effort and it's a lift.
Indeed, and there's even some like developing networks to get a part of. I'll plug the AIARE Professional Growth Network that is within our wheelhouse, but that professional growth network is set up currently for kind of underrepresented groups or folks that haven't had all the shots that maybe some of us have to get into this, and it creates a scaffolding to get to know and peer network and find other opportunities. But a lot of this is that ritual and books are tools, and the books are getting better, and now they're ebooks, and there's like great things that you can do, um, even from like the comfort of your own phone, because that's where a lot of us live these days, whether we like it or not, to stay engaged with content. I'll plug a book called The Starting Zone by Carl Berkland. It's a great ebook that is designed to support professionals specifically, and it is like an interactive avalanche handbook, which was kind of Ann and I's like holy book for many years, and still is in many ways. But this is like a new tool that allows you to kind of take it with you without having to cram it into your pocket, which it never fit very well because it's this big. So these new tools are there too. So Jen, hopefully we answered a part of your question, and we'll likely come back to it later. Um, Thank you for that. As we move forth with tonight's presentation, what we'd like to cover is kind of this professional training ecosystem. I love that Anne brought in the Canadian component, because we do have these neighbors to the north that really helped pioneer a lot of the educational um, items, particularly in the professional training world. Their industry is a lot tighter in Canada, and it's a lot more diffuse down here. And so there are nuances, and there are similarities, and there are differences, and there are benefits and there are drawbacks. But both programs are unique. But there's a lot of collaboration between the two, which I love, including even the folks that are teaching the courses sometimes come across the border. So in our ecosystem here in the United States, the American Avalanche Association is our overarching organizing body. The American Avalanche Association is there to develop guidelines and set up instructor standards and optimally help review like provider risk management plans to support like good quality and safe as instruction as possible in this dynamic medium. But this pro training is a national certification. It is recognized across multiple industries, um, and it is recognized outside of the United States. The the evaluations, which we'll talk a little bit later, are both performance and written. But optimally, the certificate that you come with out of the program can be used to gain employment. It can be used to um, increase your wage. Certain workplaces will give you a wage incentive to get this kind of training. Some will even pay for it for you. But if you're using this as your entry point, as that's becoming kind of more common, this certificate can help you get a job in the future if you're not currently working, depending on sector. Of course, experience is super valuable, and coming into this ecosystem with some experience is helpful. But if you don't have that, it's not prohibitive. And I just want to say that this is an AIARE's program is specifically set up around our philosophy to be very student centered. So the A3 is there as the overarching governing body. They audit the different pro programs that are offered out there. There are 6 providers in the United States. AIARE is one of those 6. The other ones are the American Avalanche Institute, the Silverton Avalanche School, the National Avalanche School, the formerly the Colorado Mountain College Avalanche Science Program, and the Alaska Avalanche School. So we are a group, we are an alliance, and we are all held to the same bar. And the A3 is our overarching body to help with that. A lot of that administration is covered through donations to the organization and membership fees in the organization. The other portion is covered by your student fee that you pay to be a part of these courses. So every student, regardless of background, is given an invite to the A3 to pay that fee, an invitation to pay a fee. How great is that? But you have the opportunity to engage with that organization. It does include membership for the program in which you qualify for a full season, but it does help offset the cost of all the administration that takes place. And seeing this program grow over the last 8 seasons, 8 years, um, is great. It was built on another 5 years of work. So all of this is only now kind of getting caught up and becoming sustainable. And the A3 is a leading organization. They are an internationally recognized body, and they really help us achieve our mission, which is saving lives through avalanche education. And we are the curriculum developers. We are the course delivery vehicle, and we are the people that help you all learn, adapt, and grow, get credentialed, and then hopefully we stay on your side as you progress and matriculate through your career in whatever trajectory you take. And that really leans into our philosophy, which is student centered. Um, we want you to understand that we enter into this assuming a growth mindset. That is, like, traits are not fixed, they can be developed. We have an ability to teach while you are able to ask questions and contribute. We can demonstrate things while you watch and emulate. We coach you and you improve, and then we evaluate you and you show your ability to perform to an agreed upon standard. But really, we are student centered. We want to give folks the scaffolding they need to enter the course, the demonstration and coaching to succeed during the course and ultimately pass their evaluation, and understand that even if they are not successful on their first evaluation attempt, there are opportunities in many cases to come back and either retest or work with AIARE to kind of reconcile that. And I have a very good friend who said that one of the best things that ever happened to him in his career was being failed on his level 3 snow profile exam. The level 3 was during the former pro rec, before the pro rec split, but that enabled him to come back a year later and had marked improvement in his observation and craftsmanship skills. Then he was able to carry forth and have a successful avalanche career. And he attributes that one failure point to some of his biggest successes. So I think that's what I mean as well by a growth mindset. Anything else to add on that, Anne?
Great overview. Yeah, nothing to add.
Okay. Well, we don't have any more questions in the Q&A portion yet, but if any come up, please put them there. We're monitoring that. As we move forward here, this is where Anne and I had a kind of an idea a little earlier this week around some story time, because humans learn through storytelling. And I think that's why a lot of times in this sector, we kind of gravitate towards reading case studies, normally about accidents. They don't talk about the planes that land, as they say. So talking about accidents has usually been one of those storytelling pieces that we kind of end up gravitating around. So Anne and I want to share with you a different kind of story. And it starts for the two of us on a course that we both got to take together in 2015. And that was our AIARE Level 3. I alluded to the pre-Pro Rec split days, which was where there was a continuum of level 1, level 2, level 3. And the level 3 was the highest offering at that time here in the United States. We happened to be placed on the same course, and that was in Stanley, Idaho. Um, I went up to that course with a few of my colleagues from Snowbird, and I had been working in the avalanche industry as a ski patroller, doing some guiding in South America, and just breaking into teaching a bit over the last couple of years. So I had some time in the seat, so to speak, and that gave me some bandwidth to show up and not necessarily feel overwhelmed about some of the content, because the application process was very robust. I think it was something like 10 or 12 profiles that we had to submit, as well as take a pre-course exam, which was interesting, and then submit some of our other resume pieces. So I went into that course definitely with some exam stress and nervousness around being evaluated. But the thing I was most excited about was the people. And that started with the instructor team, knowing that I was going to be under the instruction of three very seasoned, but really genuine educators. Those were Colin Zacharias, Travis Feist, and Eric Leidecker, that came to this course to teach us. and I knew them from their work with AIARE and had heard about them, but I didn't know them very well. And so I went up with some colleagues from work, and I felt like, okay, great, I've got a few people I'm participating in this with. That helps, but I also better show up for these folks because I work side by side with them. So if I don't ace something, is that going to change the way they think about me? Not likely, but it was still a real human feeling. Um, but when I got there and I sat in the room with Anne and the rest of the cast of students, I was like, wow, this is such an amazing, diverse group of folks, both in background, in gender, in upbringing, and in geography. And it was just really, really stimulating to be able to have a conversation and learn about where folks were going on their trajectories. And now, in this roundabout way, Anne and I have arrived back here talking to you all about that course experience. So I'll hand it over to Anne now to kind of share her experience with that particular course.
Yeah, 10 years later. And it was just really cool that we didn't realize it until a bit into this process where we were preparing for this webinar. And we were like, wait, we both prepared for our first professional evaluation course in the system of the of the prior system together, which was just really cool to track back to that and circle back to that moment. But um, yeah, I think Sean's point about coming and setting some expectations and where thinking about where you want to have some extra bandwidth. I think it's just so true, and I encourage you to be prepared enough in your own systems and your own environments in which you're comfortable so that you can be open to these things that really do resonate and stick with you for a long time. And that's what Sean mentioned were these personal relationships. I can tell you almost everyone who was on that course, it's such a memorable, informative experience in your career, and I just want you to take a moment to recognize that and value it because as I get later in my career, you realize that these learning opportunities to do like a collective learning experience together with your professional colleagues are few and far between. In fact, you may only do one other, the Pro 2, if you move on to that. Or if you decide to work in the education track, you might do some instructor training, you might do some AMGA courses if you're working in ski guide contexts. But it's just, yeah, these opportunities are such great opportunities to make connections with other people in the industry and learn from their working contexts. And so, yeah, being open to that learning experience, I just can't say enough about it because it is so fun and really valuable and doesn't happen very much as you progress onward. Um, and then as I think just being in a place where you can be open, not only to the people, but to other new things. Some things that were new for me when I went to this course, I had only really worked and experienced Colorado. I had done a few road trips in May when the season was over and snowpacks had really transitioned. But this was the first time I went to um, a, a transitional climate and I saw snow grains on the ground that were not completely faceted and weak. I'd never dug a snow pit in winter and seen that. And I was open to that new experience. I had enough experience under my belt digging in my own home snowpack. And so that was really valuable. Um, and so being open to people and new snowpacks and other things that I wanted to mention were other ways of approaching risk management. So being familiar with some of the core concepts that will be introduced as you prepare for this course and how you're using them either in your personal risk management or in some of these mentorship opportunities, just feeling solid with what it is you're comfortable with and familiar with so that you can be opened up to new things. And what was really new for me, having worked in mainly mechanized guiding, it was the first time I got to have in-depth conversations about hazard assessment and risk management with patrollers like Sean's crew. I also had a really cool experience where someone in my risk management group was a photographer and researcher, an Antarctic researcher. And of course, this student did meet the movement standards. It wasn't his top area of competence by any means. He was very competent, though, to be in the course, but the application that he was taking the curriculum to was really expansive for me and added a whole different way of seeing things and many dimensions I hadn't considered. And overall, these were really valuable aspects of participating in the course that I just want for all of you, that you're also able to receive all of that nuance and dimensions when you go to these courses. And so I really encourage you to be solid in your foundation and in a place of like ownership of your current experiences and how they apply to the tools and the science, um, that's also foundational. That way you can experience more and be exposed to it and grow from it, as Sean mentioned. Yeah.
Thanks, Anne. That was great. And it was cool to kind of trip down memory lane for me to just like think back 10 years on where I was at that point. And so for those coming in, these stories may be helpful to you, but you have your own story to write. And these courses enable that. And the way that we set up our kind of our courses is to allow you to really engage with that peer group, because you're all adult learners. You're coming into this with lived experience, and so much of that is important, whether it's lived experience in the avalanche industry or some other facet of life. It all counts, and our instructors know that, and that's part of our kind of instructor training is how to build good rapport with students and set up that positive and productive learning environment. And it's great to see that the experience that we had 10 years ago is still really being factored into how we set up these courses when we come into them. So I appreciate that, Anne. Thank you very much. Sorry, my alarm's going off for some reason and it's really distracting me. Um, so let's move on. Like you talked about the continental to transitional snowpack differences. So that kind of brings us to our course offerings, which is kind of what we're going to migrate into next, is like what to expect. And Ann and I are going to tag team this a little bit. Again, the Q&A stuff is great. Write something in there. We can kind of use it like a chat right now since the chat feature is disabled. But Ann and I are going to be able to answer those questions and maybe even give you the opportunity to ask them live. Um, Sorry, that didn't occur to me just a little bit ago, Jen. But we can actually unmute people's microphones if you're so inclined to ask that live. So let's talk about where these courses happen. Venues make a huge difference in all educational courses, and I think that any course offering that you look at should do a few things. It should work for your schedule and your budget, and often that's how people make decisions. But if you have some flexibility with those two things, and you can go outside of your home snowpack, it can be super valuable to see things you've never seen before, to see mountains that you've never seen before. And if you're still like, yeah, but it makes more sense for me to take it at home, great. Approach those mountains with new eyes. And we offer courses across the Western United States. Right now, we have 6 venue states that we operate in, from Washington down to California, over to Nevada, up to Idaho, over to Utah, and then finishing up in Colorado. And so we try to have something across the Western United States. We concentrated in a few areas, but we do have a pretty wide gamut of venue types as well, not just geographic locations, but we operate at ski areas like Snowbird. Monarch Mountain is new this year. Mammoth Mountain in California. Mount Rose, which will be our affinity based program this year in Nevada, up to Stevens Pass. Those are our ski area partners. But even if you're not a ski patroller and you don't care to be a ski patroller, you can still get a lot out of those courses with lift access, but also backcountry access as well. So you're not just riding the lifts, you're doing a lot of backcountry travel as well. The the other courses that we've had are like our snow machine venue. We've recently relocated from Togwotee Pass over to, which is in Wyoming, over to Island Park, Idaho. So which is cool because it kind of visits 2 small sub ranges, and it has a very centralized location for snow machiners. So that's going to be really cool this year for our pro program. We have courses that are kind of set up more just strictly around like a backcountry lodge environment, like the Mountaineers Lodge at Mount Baker. And that's at a time of year when the snowpack is starting to transition to, and with those maritime snowpacks, you start to see things a little differently. So we have a unique setting and setup for these. The instructor teams often travel to different venues, so you won't necessarily just be with like local instructors. You might have one local, but you might have two visiting. And some of that's logistics for us and some of that's practical for us, but a lot of that is because we think the instructors benefit from that and they tell us that they do. I love going and teaching in other places and seeing things with a fresh perspective and not getting kind of drilled into, gosh, this is the snowbird way. It's like, no, I can show up at a different venue and see it differently. So those are kind of our course offerings. For this year, we have 8 Pro 1s, um, and they'll be offered from mid-December through the latter part of March. So we try to have something early and we try to have something late, and then we kind of concentrate a lot in January because then people are like working and they want to put the stuff to the test. But those late season courses, like the one at Snowbird in late March, is cool too because you can just take the whole season to prepare, and maybe that works better for you. So we try to have again something in our catalog for everybody with these Pro 1s because we offer more of them than the Pro 2s. But the Pro 2s, for those thinking ahead, we also try to have quite a bit of variety in those venues. And with all of these, we really want to examine the contexts that we're proximal to. So when we're at a ski area, yes, we do some ski area focus, but we use that as one lens into the risk management process that Anne talked about. But we set a context for each day, regardless of the context that we're actually in at the moment, to try to create an opportunity for students to really focus their objectives of the day onto something and not make it kind of ethereal, like I'm a Pro 1 student. It's more like, no, today I'm an observer for the local avalanche forecast center, and I need to go out and reduce my uncertainty about the persistent weak layer that was buried on January 10th, and now it's January 20th, something to that effect. So that's what we have from a course offering standpoint. I'm going to now turn it over to Anne to kind of talk about the, hey, you've decided where you want to go, your application's been approved, and you're now going to start preparing.
Sounds great, Sean. I just want to give a moment for all of you online here. Are there questions about specific venues or pros or cons to timing within the season? I'm anticipating that there might be some, and are any of you trying to make some decisions along those lines and looking for some guidance? Let us know in the Q&A.
You can also use the raise hand feature as well, if that's more comfortable. It looks like we have one.
Yahoo!
Sure. Okay, Aaron. Um, Monarch Mountain, since it's new this year. Okay, Monarch Mountain is located kind of in the southwesternish quadrant of Colorado, but not the San Juans. It's outside the town of Salida. So that particular venue is a new venue to us, but it's a long-standing mountain. They've been there for a while, and what's really cool about this particular year is that they are expanding their terrain to include a whole new terrain pod. They're taking what was some of their cat skiing terrain and have converted it to lift access. Having worked at a ski area that's done a little bit of expansion, but also planned for a lot of expansion and then never realized it, it is a massive effort to do that. To even open 377 acres like they're going to do is a massive effort, and to just build one chairlift. So it's going to be cool to be there on the first year. They provide a classroom space right at the foot of the mountain. And they also provide us with some human powered access to some of their cat skiing terrain that isn't being developed for the ski area. So we won't be cat skiing, but we'll be in some of the terrain. And so we'll kind of get to observe, excuse me, a little bit of how they might use that terrain and get a lens into it. But we'll be also using the lift access on a daily basis to either go ski within the ski area and see how a ski patroller might approach terrain from the top down. That's how we tend to do it. Or look at things into the backcountry from the bottom up and kind of just utilize those resources. So hopefully, Aaron, that answered your question. And then Oliver has a similar question about Snowbird. And Anne asked the question, and I get to answer them. Sorry, Anne.
No, no, that was the intent.
The Snowbird course is about 60% resort based, and then we do We do three different trailheads in the area. We selected Snowbird for our kind of early and late season courses because we have reliable uphill access to good snow coverage should we have a poor start if you're in the December timeframe, or should we be looking for colder snow if you're in the late March, early April timeframe? And so the Snowbird course does rely on lift infrastructure to both access points out of the ski area, but to also we have three trailheads that are within striking distance of the classroom that we can go to and utilize. Mammoth Lakes is going to be similar. That's again going to be based out of the Mammoth ski area, but we have a partnership with the local guide service, Sawtooth Mountain. Sorry, the other SMG, Sierra Mountain Guides, and they have a permit that they open up to us for a few days in some of the area outside of the ski area boundary. So yeah, all these questions kind of focused on like ski areas particularly, but even if we were to extend this to Stevens and Rose, again, like we are using lift infrastructure to get us places, but because so much of the Pro One is focused uh, on kind of terrain analysis and some group management, but a lot of observations. These courses, when they're facilitated as ski area, allow you to get to some places a little faster. And what I've observed and heard from students is even if they have more of like a human powered focus, they get a lot out of going to that and kind of looking at the terrain through a slightly different lens. But hey, regardless of whether you have a shot or not, you're always wondering where's the avalanche going to be triggered? How big is it going to be? What's the path going to look like? And what are the consequences? One more
Cool.
question from Evan, it looks like.
Oh, nice.
We don't specifically recommend like the place to stay, unless you're at the Mount Baker Lodge course, in which case you're staying at the lodge. But when you're at Snowbird, we recommend like staying down near the mouth of the canyon. Don't stay in the road. Don't stay in Little Cottonwood Canyon. We can't do much about road closures. When they close, the road closes. We get in line. When they open it, we go up. We do have a backup classroom in the valley if it's really bad, and we do have access to a permit area over in Big Cottonwood if it's really bad. But chances are, if Little Cottonwood's closed, all that traffic gets shunted to Big. So you just kind of take what you get when you're talking about the center of the avalanche universe, i.e., Little Cottonwood Canyon. Um, and when you're going to places in Colorado, if you're a small town Colorado like Salida, there's not a lot of spots. Up near Stevens, we stay in the Leavenworth zone. Out in Nevada, we stay in Reno. Although if you're in the Tahoe Basin, you just come up from the other side if you're already living there. Mammoth Lakes, definitely over Bishop, and Island Park, small town. So you're like there at the Spring Hill Suites, probably where the classroom's going to be.
Sean, can you refresh my memory? I can't remember if with Stevens we do recommend that students stay on the Leavenworth side,
Yes,
just yeah, for contingencies. But um, yeah, I think once you book, if there is a preference, it is specified.
yes, all of that information will be in the course descriptions. But hey, great to get those out of the way here. So thank you, Oliver, Jen, Evan, and Aaron. Thanks for asking that question and to prompt everybody.
Mm-hmm.
All right, back to
Yes.
you.
And we don't do anything for like arranging lodging, but I will say, I don't know, this is not like a formal recommendation or anything, but in my experience on all the courses I've done all kinds of lodging arrangements. The most fun, the most valuable, and the most memorable was Sean on our course. We all went in, somebody like threw out a group email to everyone who was registered and said, hey, does everyone want to go in on a large Airbnb that we can share? And it was so lovely. And so I don't know if you have that itch to be an organizer and rally the crew for camaraderie and maybe a slightly lower price point. It's always been, in my experience, well worth it. So I'll encourage you to maybe think along those lines too, but I know it's not always possible. Cool. Yeah, let's dive in a bit to how to help you prepare for this. You guys are all gearing up for a really exciting season, it sounds, to get started on this career path. We want to set you up for success. It's a big investment, takes a lot of planning, time, finances. And so, how can we help you prepare and have you on the right track for expectations? How I want to start with this is actually to get you thinking of where you're at right now, and make a list of one, at least, thing that you can think of right now that you would like to do before this course to prepare. Whether that I'm not sure what it is. Maybe it's some new gear, maybe it's something to revisit or read. Um, a skill to dial in. Think of one thing right now. Then we're going to talk for a bit and put our heads together collectively, and hopefully you can add more to this list of things you might not have already seen. So this is kind of like a pre-assessment. What do we already know we likely need to do before this course? And then we'll keep going. So make note of that. One thing you'd like to have tackled before this Pro 1 course this year. And here we go. I'm going to share a few slides to talk about some of the expectations that are a bit more concrete. So many tabs going. Are you all able to see the slides? Sean, is this
Yeah,
working?
yeah, great shot of touring through a snowy environment.
Okay, so this actually, Sean, I went back through my photo files. This is a photo from our Pro 1 in Idaho,
Wow.
which or our
Oh,
pro course
I
in
love it.
Idaho, which was a fantastic memory in my career. I want and hope for all of you that you have a really constructive, memorable experience where you get the most out of it. And the first thing that I can say for what to expect is that it's a big week. It's a big lift. You're going to be doing a lot uh, of evaluation, but also, as Sean mentioned earlier, there's going to be some instruction components, some demo components, some coaching and evaluation, um, all across the board with rescue, with terrain and risk management, with making observations and bringing them to formal hazard assessments, as well as moving through these environments in all types of conditions, which is an exhausting endeavor in itself. So these courses are 5 back-to-back days, and it's important to recognize that there are days on either side of that too that I want you to be thinking about how you might need to approach in terms of winter weather, turnaround and recovery if you're heading into other work. How do you need to set yourself up for success in something that really is, quite honestly, very demanding? And you want to be in good health, well rested, and at your best for something of such an investment for your time. Again, this is an example agenda of the 5 jam-packed days. We don't get overly prescriptive here. We might shuffle some things around due to the venue or the conditions, but ultimately the thing I want to show you in this graphic is that each day runs a long period of time. These run from 8 in the morning till 5:30 at night, 5 days in a row, and there's a lot to cover, that includes some instruction, but always a morning meeting and assessment and pre-trip collaboration before going into the field, doing various activities in the field, coming back, doing the professional standards to wrap up and bring in all the data into a formal system and procedure, and then also taking that into homework. And so thinking about how to care for yourself and bringing awareness to just how dialed your personal systems for operational work need to be. Um, yeah, you should be hopefully in the swing of things, and have a flow already for how do you dry your goggles at night? What snacks do you need to replace every day? Yeah, the layering systems, those types of things, is really going to help you be successful here. And you can see there's, as Sean mentioned, there's opportunities for some coaching and demo, and the amount of assessment really amps up towards the end, for some full exam days where you don't want to be on a downward spiral by the end. I do want to talk more specifically about the 4 areas of assessment. Sean mentioned this is an evaluation course for the American Avalanche Association that oftentimes acts as the gateway to professional employment. So this is a big deal. There's not a lot of these in this industry, so this holds a lot of water, and you want to take it seriously, and feel a normal amount of confident going into it. Like you've practiced the skills, you know you have them on board, and we're all going to bumble and be a bit awkward in those types of environments, but the the skills are on board. So there's 4 areas of the assessment. As you're probably familiar, there is a avalanche rescue exam that you are tested for just you as an individual, your skills. And that is a pass fail exam. Spend a lot of time on observations and recording standards and making sure that what you submit to a team is valuable and accurate and supports risk management. Um, we cover a lot on hazard and risk assessment and do that daily for all the activities. And we also have a written exam. And so let's go more into the breakdown of each of these. So the rescue exam, you've probably heard about this. Um, it does have a time component, and that does significantly factor into the pass fail, but it's more than that. Um, there's also a possibility to fail if you're not using the proper techniques, even if the clock reads correctly. Um, on each exam, there is a possibility for a retest. And if all else fails, then you will need to complete this component to get the Pro 1 certification at another time and at your expense. There is a cap on the number of times you can schedule a retest. There's 3 total attempts allowed before you need to retake the entire Pro 1 course. Sean, do you want to jump in on that? Okay. Another category are your observations and recording standards. And what we'll do there is have you do a full snow profile with snowpack tests. That is something that um, you should be practicing so that you have a system dialed, and that when you see it demoed, you might pick up a few more things. When you're coached in this class, you can get some feedback. And so by the end, when you take this exam, you have a really strong practice already. There's also avalanche occurrence documentation. If you were to see an avalanche occur in the backcountry, we want to make sure that you're reporting that accurately and to standard. Um, there's also avalanche path ID as part of this category. And your weather station observations is part of this as well. I don't know why that's not on the slide, but it's also included. This is to make sure that, you know, when you go to work for an operation, any type, your boss can say, hey, can you go dig on a southwest aspect at 2200? We have a data gap there, and we're really curious about the December surface hoar layer. And they know that you're a reliable contributor to gathering that data and bringing it back. Great. There is a possibility to retest in the snow profile and snowpack test exam. Usually those are clumped together. You do it all at once. Um, Yeah, there's one retest per student in this category, and you may need to do some practice prior to a re-examination because it is a lift of time for everyone involved. So you'll want to be dialed for that. Um, for category 3, this is hazard and risk assessment. These will be the forms you fill out every morning. And when you come back in the PM, where you're doing a hazard assessment with your team, and documenting that to standard. Also, how you're contributing to the team and showing that you're keeping up with where the consensus is and you're able to follow along with executing that. And you're able to recognize avalanche terrain in the field and characterize some of the hazards and areas of likelihood of triggering or elevated consequence in the terrain. This is a non-retestable category. And so I think it really takes some uh, good self-awareness, which AIARE has some fantastic tools to help you prepare for where your gaps might be ahead of this category. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. Finally, there is a written exam that's going to test some of the foundational concepts in a lot of the core papers and reading. That again, we have really solid materials to help you with this. It also has a cutoff for 70% required to pass the exam. You are able to retest one time after the course if needed, in order to pass your Pro 1. So I think a big takeaway from this is that this evaluation is important to your safety, to your employer's safety, to our entire industry and caring for each other. Um, we care that you meet the standard, but we also care that we're doing this fairly, and we have a lot of systems in place to make sure that we're all testing the same skills and looking for the same criteria. And this assessment process is formalized and standardized by the A3. So this is to make it certify you to be able to work as an avalanche professional. This is something that comes from a really cool resource that is new to AIARE, but has been an incredible product from Sean and another colleague, Roger, where they're really trying to help you in preparing and anticipating how to attack all this preparation for the course. But with the AIARE courses, you will get access to a phenomenal online learning resource that I'll show just a screenshot from in just a second. You'll also get this study guide that's going to work through it with you and help you in areas like asking how you feel in terms of self-assessment and prompt some reflection of where your gaps may be, areas where you could use focused mentorship and just bring some of that um, yeah, to your consciousness before the course so you're not surprised in unfair ways. Um, you'll also work through some payment logistics, get access to your course classroom where even more details will be available, like the schedule, some of the logistics for the venue, maps, etc. You'll attend a pre-course webinar where you get to meet and ask your instructors questions, meet the other students on your course, talk through a lot of these logistics in way more detail than we are tonight, but really get you set up for success. And then you'll all throughout this be completing the study guide and submitting your online learning. And ultimately, this right here, I'm just so proud of and so grateful for, because I think the advice is like, design what you wish you had. When I went into my Pro 1, I was taking stabs in the dark. I was like reading the Avalanche handbook. I was making some note cards on the components of risk management, some of the terms we use in this industry. And I didn't have a walkthrough like this. I was just taking my best guess. But this exists for you. I think it's really helpful, and anticipating that this is something you need to build into your fall and winter is huge, especially if you're juggling other big commitments like family and other work. This is a screenshot from the pre-course learning that was part of that flow that I just want to point to in case there's nerves about the assessment components. Because if you look at the left-hand side, the way this online learning is organized is chunked and compartmentalized into the assessment categories. So you can work on them and build your confidence and where you think your skills are and where you need to focus some time based on those assessment categories. And yeah, help you sleep a little bit better at night ahead of this class. So all that will be available to you. It's a phenomenal resource, and it is required. Yeah, that was what I had prepared for this evening in terms of setting some expectations on assessment and just what these courses look like. But let's open it up to some questions that might have come up for this topic.
Thank you, Anne. Yeah, we already have one in the chat from Oliver, and I was typing a response to capture my thought, but I'll answer it live here. Oliver asked, what's the pass-fail rate for the course? A totally valid question for an assessment course. We've looked at it more at an evaluation or assessment category by category. So if AIARE offers 100 uh, offers Pro 1s to 100 students every year, which is about average, 100 to 110 for Pro 1, about 10 to 15 of those are going to have to retest the rescue. But ultimately, they retest and are successful. We've over the last 8 years, we've had very few instances where folks were not able to have a successful retest, either the retest that was offered because time was available on the course, or in a third attempt at a different venue. Snow profiles, you're talking about like 3 to 4 a season out of 100 students. So um, those again are going to be like an off-site from the course venue. The reason being is if you haven't succeeded in your snow profile and snowpack tests examination, you need some time to go out there and practice those observation skills, and you need to do it in a slightly different snowpack. So 14 days is enough for that snowpack to change a little bit, or if you go somewhere else to retake it, you've got that opportunity. So that's kind of the category 1 and 2. Again, the retesting on category 3, the risk management stuff, because that is so baked into like the whole course, it's not a discrete element that's individually retestable. And we have had maybe one a season out of 100 that aren't going to pass that component because they didn't quite have the skills needed to effectively manage the risk to themselves or the group, or they could not be a good team player in meetings, and they were constantly, even with coaching and demonstration, not doing the best job of being collaborative, of being respectful of others, and not contributing to a positive working environment on the course. So that's even more rare, right? The written exam, 1 to 2 students this year did not pass. That's actually a little less than the previous years of like 3 to 4 um, on those, and that's a virtual proctoring, so it's a little bit less logistics heavy. But hopefully that answered your question, Oliver, about the pass fail rate. We don't look at it as like a holistic 3% of students fail, nor do we have any sort of like expectation that we're going to do that. AIARE is going to work really hard to meet students where they are, both with all of the pre-course materials that were just mentioned, but with the webinar, and then on the course with demonstration, coaching, and what I like to call coached evaluation. I don't stand there with my stunner shades on and my arms crossed in the pit with you, watching how you look at your grains or how you tap on your column. That intimidating work environment is a cultural thing we're trying to shift away from. So Ann and I get down in the pit. We may ask you some questions about what you're observing, and if something that you show us it doesn't line up with our understanding of the snowpack structure, we might interrogate you a little bit more to try to help you find the right answer. And ultimately, if you don't find that right answer, then that will be reflected in your score. But as it stands, AIARE works really hard to help students get to and meet the standard of minimum competency in these courses. And those that come prepared with an open mind and put in the work, they get to that minimum standard, and many exceed it. And those that don't pass on their first attempt often come back even more galvanized to do well and do so. So there's been very few instances in my 8 years of managing this program where somebody outright fails the Pro 1 even after multiple retests. So, you know, that might not alleviate your stress in the moment when you're sitting there trying to do your avalanche rescue exam, but know that that skill in particular is a huge component of being an avalanche professional. Being a competent rescuer and being able to effect a rescue on your own for a buried partner or partners, as it is the case here, is a super critical skill. Um, and ultimately, that category 3 stuff, you need to go out there with the field book and get good notes, but you need to come home alive with that field book for it to be of any value. So that's where the category 3 stuff really kind of comes in. So hopefully, we've not introduced more stress, but only clarified. And yeah, these are stressful environments. They are a test. They're stressful for us as instructors because we ultimately know that you going on and working in the avalanche industry, you take a small part of us with you, and we want that to be the best part of our instruction. So, any other questions about anything related to the examinations? Looks like we have one here. What
Maybe
time?
while these are being entered in, I'd like to invite you now too to add to your list
Yeah.
of things you'd like to prepare. If that's a couple rescue days to put on the calendar with some of your partners, maybe a mentorship day in terrain with a professional colleague that you may have contact with. Maybe it's a pit day, a dig day with someone you know who also is keen to spend time on that in detail. Um, think of some of those things that are going to set you up for success in these assessment categories and how you can fit them in ahead of your course in ways that work for you with you.
Yeah, that's great, Anne. Thank you for adding that piece, kind of bringing it back to the prompt you gave them earlier. Michael, we're going to answer your question in the next section here.
Oh, sweet.
So I'm going to close up this section with just a gear and a movement expectation. Um, whether you're taking the course on your split board or on your alpine touring skis or on your snow machine, you are expected to meet a certain set of eligibility criteria in your movement skills. We don't expect you to be a professional level rider on your snow machine. We don't expect you to be a professional level skier. You need to be a competent skier or a competent rider or a competent snow machiner that does not interfere with your bandwidth and your ability to move on the course and be a hazard to yourself or someone else. We encounter variable snow conditions on every single course. It may be that it is 3 to 5 feet of blower powder. It may be that it's 3 to 5 feet of cascade concrete, or it may be breakable windboard. It may be complete melt freeze. That being said, we're not going to ever go into an environment where like the slide for life is like a real possibility and we're expecting everybody to have sharps, ice axes, crampons, and all that stuff. That does not create a productive learning environment for this type of course. This is not a guide course where you're expected to be able to short rope somebody or PL planche with your crampons and ice axe. Like that's a different set of skills that we don't expect you to have here. But you need to be able to move competently, confidently, and not allow your movement skills to detract from your ability to contribute to the course. So if there are certain things you know, add that to your list that you need to work on before you get there. In terms of those days when we're like in the backcountry, on snowmobiles, we may travel 5 to 20 miles to get to a zone. And then those zones may encounter timbered slopes, off camber, creeks and gullies that require some navigation. Um, with skis or a split board, we may be ascending between 1,200 and 3,000 vertical feet in a day. Um, when we're on the lift, you need to be able to potentially take a few lift runs in some lightweight gear before going out to the backcountry through, let's say, an access point. So those expectations are all outlined in our essential eligibility criteria. And gear and movement, we don't set a gear and movement standard. We don't make you submit like the AMGA does necessarily to enter like a ski guides course, a movement skills video, because that's not our focus. However, we are adamant that you come and you're ready to move in the modality that you've chosen for your course. Anything to add on gear and movement, Anne? I mean, that's kind of like your travel mode, but it doesn't even touch like the rest of the equipment list, which I don't necessarily want to get into here because that information is published on our site. But do you want to add anything about gear before we move on?
Just one quick note too. If your gear, I think this is kind of goes without saying, but it's a great reminder um, to have whatever spare parts are going to ensure your success in the course. Because yeah, that we can't always put the course on hold or make sure that businesses are open or can accommodate our limited time frame. So it's important that you come with any critical pieces for bindings, for example, or especially on our motorized courses, any spare parts for your machine, especially in potentially a early season or shallow travel conditions, just making it so that you can get through those 5 days without catastrophic incident to gear sustainability, I guess, is really something to have in mind as well.
Yeah, thank you, Anne, for not letting me breeze past that. Being able to do some minor field repairs on your touring gear or a field sled repair is super important, and that early season conditions piece is real. Or even shallower parts on a mid season course if we're starting a little lower or something. As far as like the rest of your kit, we line out a pretty robust equipment list. It's not dissimilar from what you're carrying. I'm sure it might have a little bit more information in there about like, hey, think about this kind of stuff for your snow study and observations. If your kit isn't really dialed, I mean, I'll raise my hand. I'm like a total gear nerd, and when I go to these courses, I always learn about something new that somebody else has that like I'm gonna go try. So that might be an app, that might be a loop to look at crystals through or a crystal screen. It might be a new pack or some other just like system. Like, oh, this is how I'm going to attach my pencil to my field book, like something silly like that. So with equipment, you want it to be professional grade. Um, you want it to be up to the current best practices and standards, and we're going to help line that out so you've got it explicit. You don't necessarily need to be thinking it here in June, but come October, probably time to hit that gear sale and re up on what you need. Um, thanks, Anne. Okay, well, let's get into the last 15 minutes of our session here. We're going to address Michael's question as we talk about our application portfolio and like the registration process. Ultimately, everything we've given you up to this point is kind of telling you like, hey, what to expect when I get there? What's a Pro 1 course? What's the evaluation like? What are the venues? But now it's like, well, how do I even get in the door? So that door is set up through our website, and it's an online learning, or sorry, it is an online registration. I will just quickly share my screen so you can see kind of what our website looks like. Chances are you've already been there to see it. But effectively, we have everything lined out here that I'm about to talk about um, on the Pro 1 page, what the course is about, a tentative course schedule by month, the application timeline. So July 1st, we're going to open that up at like, I don't know, 9 a.m. And just to put it out there, like there's not so much demand for AIARE education courses that they sell out in the first 15 minutes. We're just not there, folks. So have your stuff ready, but don't be like, oh, if I don't get it, it's not like booking a river permit or trying to get a campsite in a national park or anywhere for that matter these days. You're going to have time to submit it in the opening weeks. Um, and most of our course capacities are between 12 and 18. So you're going to find a seat most likely on the course that makes sense. You get to select your first, second, and third choice. So if by the time you've submitted and you get waitlisted or something, that second choice is offered to you, um, and you can choose the locations. And all of those locations will be shown on the screen. Um, but at the time of that application, you need to submit all the materials, which we're going to go through in a moment, and then pay a deposit. That deposit can be a $500 deposit or 50 or 100% of the course tuition. Um, once that process is there, it takes us 1 to 2 business days on our end to kind of go through it. So that's like what the process looks like, and that's what you're going to see at the top of this Pro 1 page on our website. but I'm going to move down to prerequisites and what's going to qualify you for getting in the door here. You need to have a level 1 avalanche course certificate from any A3 recognized provider. The A3 has oversight of both streams of education, and a recognized provider like AIARE or like the American Avalanche Institute or like 6 Point up in Montana for motorized, like they've gone through the credentialing process to say, hey, we have a robust curriculum, we update it regularly, we have instructor standards for who teaches these courses. Um, it needs to be from one of those institutions. There are 83 of them in the United States. AIARE has the largest market share of that, but as long as your certificate is relatively recent, i.e., in the last 7 to 8 years, and kind of within that newer course stream progression that started in 2017, the same goes for the avalanche rescue course. We need to have you fill out a resume with 20 days of documented risk management and avalanche terrain or workplace experience. And really, if you're not working in the avalanche industry yet, that resume is going to be a great spot to illustrate how you've used mentorship in a backcountry environment with more experienced people than yourself, people who know what the professional standards look like. Um, and so that resume document that's linked down here in the application process is going to help you get there. So these tools are all there. We're also going to ask you to pay your American Avalanche Association student fee, fill out the template, and then organize your documentation. Um, in that documentation, we want to see some copies of your field book, whether it be an AIARE field book from a rec course or your Right in the Rain book, or if you're just an avid contributor to your local avalanche center and you've got like 3 or 4 observations that you've submitted, you can use those. If you like playing around with SnowPilot, which is a snow profile documentation tool, and you've got some great snow profiles that you've recorded, send us those. Basically, we need to see like 3 days worth of that documentation from that 20 days that you're referencing as your relevant experience. Um, our upload template is really straightforward. If you have all of this stuff in order before registration opens, it's going to make the submission process really smooth. And I encourage you to do that whenever you're signing up. So all of this has everything you need. The last thing I want to mention is if you've maybe worked in the industry before, but you never took a formal course, but you have some other courses, maybe they weren't A3 recognized, maybe you worked as an assistant for a guide service for a couple of seasons, and you went to their workplace trainings, you can apply for a prior learning assessment to illustrate how you've met the equivalent learning outcomes of those courses without having that formal credential. We have a review process that has a fee structure attached to that, but that's another entry point for those who might have some other life experience that is and training in a workplace environment that makes sense. So we can work through that with you as well. But the rest of the list, as it's stated here, is what we're seeing more of now that we're 8 years into this. More than likely, you all have this level 1 in avalanche rescue course under your belt, and you've been either working, even if it's minimally, or like recreating with purpose, using professional level, what I'll call practices in your documentation, like reading the forecast, documenting the hazard, talking about your trip plan. All of those things are what we want to see before you come into this class. Okay. So I think that covers a lot of that application portfolio. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. This website has a lot there. We had another question pop up. Um, we covered all the different pieces of the application. Um, the application has a medical disclosure form attached to it too, so that's like an extra piece that you're going to need to fill out. And then it's just going to be your responsibility if anything on that changes before the course to let us know. But we also want to encourage that, like, if you know that you need a reasonable accommodation around either a physical ailment or a condition or something else, like, hey, I read a little slower, or I've got neurodivergency and I need an extra 35-40 minutes on the written exam. Please let us know that. We want to work with you. We've worked with a lot of folks in the adaptive communities too. We've had students on our courses that are deaf or hard of hearing. We've been able to work with their discrete conditions and help them succeed on the course. That doesn't mean we can do everything, but we will try. but it's your responsibility to let us know. And that medical form, disclosure form that's part of the application process is the time to do that. So please take that seriously. And as you get registered for the course and you move on, if you like tweak your ACL before the course, but you're like, I can roll, my doctor says I can roll, please tell us. That's a risk management thing. We need to know about it. And all of that information is confidential. We have a medical advisor and director that we can ask questions about, and we adhere to any HIPAA regulations that exist as well here in the United States. So know that anything you submit is confidential. So that's where we are there. We have a question that was submitted in the chat here, and it was kind of about like being maybe out of touch for the next 3 months. Hey, my logbook is in my car. I don't have access to it. Great. We hear that a lot. And what we can do is we can have you submit an application with most of your other things. And we'll kind of keep that as a placeholder. Just submit like a placeholder document saying, here's my situation. I'll read that in the review process and reach out to you, and we'll create a deadline that needs to be submitted by. But we won't totally not allow you into the course just because you're missing that like one thing because we're in the off season. Optimally, credentials have all been digitized now, and so that stuff will be available to you in some other way, maybe with increased mobility. But that's a great question from one of our attendees, and something I get frequently. So we do our best to be equitable with admissions in terms of things like that, but we also need to set some guidelines so that if somebody truly doesn't have the other pieces lined up, or if you don't have the pieces lined up, but somebody else does, we can put you on the wait list in position 1 or what have you, and allow somebody else to come in. On that note, I do want to make mention of scholarship. We have a scholarship program. Right now, our scholarships are affinity based. They are for women and female identifying participants, genderqueer or non-binary, and motorized users. Those scholarships are a big boon for participants coming into these courses and can be a platform for you to stand on to help get into the door. But AIARE isn't the only one that offers those, and there are a wide array of scholarships that are offered from other institutions. Some are kind of more affinity based, some are a little bit more open. The American Avalanche Association has scholarships for members, and so when you pay that student fee, you become a general member as long as you fill out the membership form along with it. And so that enables you to do those. The difference between ours and the A3 or some others is that ours open on August 1st and most others open much later in the season and work more on a reimbursement model. But do know that there are financial programs out there to support you if should you need it. And I think it's a great thing to take advantage of. And AIARE does work really hard every year to secure funding, and so far we've averaged about $90,000 to $100,000 a year in scholarship put out there into the world to help people get into our courses.
Sean, there was a question from Aaron I want to make sure that we cover as well.
Oh, yeah.
About a time frame for your 20 days of experience. Is there a
Yeah,
limit on how far back?
Optimally, those 20 days should be as recent to the time you're applying as reasonable. If you had some like really awesome work experience or trip experience 3-5 years ago that you want to include in there, include it in addition to the list. But optimally, we want to try to keep it a little tighter to show that you've been recently doing this. If it's 20 days across 20 seasons, then maybe that's not quite the same as kind of 20 days in the recent 2 seasons. Good question. Thanks for not letting me skip over that. Another question is, hey, this is a mechanical question. Hey, I've got 2 different AIARE accounts under 2 different emails that have my certs on them. See if you can go pull them both, and then when you apply under the one you want to use, and then we'll combine the 2. Or just reach out to us, contact@avtraining.org, and we can do it on the front end. I'll put that here as well. But yeah, that's an important one if you have this. And that's really common, right? We set up multiple accounts all the time. Yeah, and Aaron is speaking from experience, so I'm not just BSing you. They emailed AIARE and they did it. Sarah, kudos to Sarah McGregor. She is our like tech wizardress, technically our member services manager, but she runs the database and everything in it, and enables the registration and everything in it. And we're going through that testing process right now. But one email to contact@avtraining.org, and within a matter of days, you'll have that completed. Great. Well, that gets us kind of through all of the content that we wanted to cover, Anne, as well as answering questions along the way. We're just shy of 30 minutes past the hour. So, is there anything else that you'd like to add, Anne, before we conclude?
No, I'd just love to hear if there's other things we didn't cover, other questions that you all have. We're here for you. So now's the time to get them in the Q&A, so that we can make sure you're getting what you want out of this evening's time. I will say back to Aaron's question about the time frame, Sean, your response was excellent. We do want to know that you're like recently and currently engaged in keeping these skills fresh. But of course, we understand if there is a season ending injury or maybe pregnancy or any of those things that might take you out for a year or so. Of course, we understand that.
I just um, I just answered that question around the accounts, and so I'm hopeful that that made it into the Q&A under answered. If you look at that as an answered question to Aaron's question, my email address is Sean SEAN Zimmerman wall at avtraining.org. It's also on the website, and you'll find it in the application when you submit it as well. So if you have a channel that you want to reach out to me directly, you can. Otherwise, that like contact, we have like a contact us feature on our website. That kind of stuff will get directed to me. But just know that like we're here, we're invested in your success. We want to get in front of any questions that you have before you apply. Um, rather than try to filter through them as you're applying. But even if that's the case, we're here to support you. One of the nice things about having a relatively small school is that like the admissions team of one is able to be hyper attentive to anything that comes up. And if I need assistance, I'll bring in that from within my staff, and we're there to get you in the door.
Cool. A nice message from Jen. Jen, thank you for the sentiment there. I think if I had some parting advice, some of the things I want to leave you with are to help you anticipate and prepare. And so I'm a list maker. You don't necessarily have to make a list, but I would love for you to have an idea or some notes jotted down in the categories of um, gear you might need to revisit, refresh. Um, Foundational reading, which will be part of the online materials, but maybe there's some chapters in Staying Alive in Avalanche Terrain or the Avalanche Handbook, or reading about the conceptual model of avalanche hazard, which will be part of your prep. But reading some of those core documents is going to be so helpful. Um, so gear, reading, skills practice, and then scheduling. If there's any, um, yeah, skills you want to make days set up for, and then any scheduling notes you want to make in order to have your travel and certain things in place. So those are the four buckets I would kind of have my head wrapped around if I were in your shoes. But yeah, those are my 2 cents. What do you have, Sean?
No, that's great to end it on, and I'm going to let you have the last word. And thank you, everyone. We look forward to having you on a course this season. Enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you so much for your time. We'll look forward to it.
Yep. We'll send a follow up email here. You'll have a poll once you exit. Please let us know how we did, and we'll make the recording available in good time to everybody that registered. Have a good night.